Hello and welcome, and so grateful everybody is here that's here now. And Paula, hi. Didn't
Oh,
forget this
wow.
week. I was in Orlando last week and hanging in with Jessica. Oh, geez. I didn't know Jessica went down to in Orlando. Jessica's one of our mutual friends.
Oh,
And so, what a blessing that you had time with her that way. I know I miss her as a friend and spending time with her too, but we'll get there one of these days. And I need to do some
yeah.
stuff for her too. Add that to the list. Oh, I got to finish my feng shui stuff for her. So with that, welcome to let's see, next week will be our last life clarifications with
With Dance of
the
the Soul.
Dance of
Yeah.
Soul.
Yeah.
And because we're merging, and both of us knew that something was going to happen, but I just had this feeling like something was going to be changing with our shows since about April, May, somewhere in there. I was starting to get a hit that something was going to change, and then
Yeah.
Regan gave the okay after I got my
Oh,
new
yeah.
notice with my name, and I
Every
think we're both
every
feeling a breath of fresh air with
every
it.
day
But
with
yet,
an angel.
with
Every day with an angel, right? Did I
every
get that
day
right?
with an angel.
I love it. Hmm.
Yeah. And so with that it's changing up how I'm even starting to do my shows now. Just I'm getting some downloads and stuff like that I need to do and wanting to do, called to do. And so with so this is our not the last Monday we're live.
Next Monday will be last. Yeah, I'll be in Monterey then. So
Yeah.
we'll be at our place in Monterey. It'd be a good place to finalize things. Yeah, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll be on every once in a while on your show, just talking about whatever. But yeah, we each just the universe just has a way of changing and moving. And since we're both light workers, I've been getting so busy doing my life between live sessions. It's been hard to fit this Monday show into my schedule regularly every week. So that's a good thing because that's what we were doing the show for, so we can pick up more clients and help them with their issues and things. So
Yes, and
yeah,
both Regan and I decided that we wanted to keep working together. So
yeah,
he's planning on being on the third Wednesday of every month.
yeah.
So the show Mondays will be, you'll catch me on Every Day with an Angel Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. So that day is going to stay the same. It's Monday that's going to go away.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is that my friend Susie Parker Goins is going to be on for several months, the first Wednesday of every month. And
Yay.
then Regan said that he was going to be on the third Wednesdays of every month.
I
So
like that.
things are happening. It's it's one of those things that we can do. And Paula says, oh, that would be a gift for you to do this with him, because I know Regan is a amazing life between lives, afterlife walk, and so he just is a great guide on
Oh
how to
yeah.
do it.
Oh
And
yeah.
so
So
with
Paula,
that
Paula. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah. Go ahead. I'm just
So with
reading what she said.
Paula, great job, doing that. And he can do it on Zoom too, but in
Yeah.
person that has a little different taste. So
I like in person better, but
yeah,
yeah.
he's in the San Francisco area. Let's see.
But
She also says, I ever taken two people together. Have you ever taken two people together to the
yeah.
afterlife?
Well, yeah, I have. Not on the same day, but it was a husband wife that came to me for counseling, and they figured, hey, what a better way than to talk to their higher selves on the other side. So one day I had the wife go over and talk to her husband's higher self, and the next day the husband talked to his wife's higher self. So and then on the few days after that, we all got together and talked about what they learned, and it helped them both. They were both able to decide what they needed to do in their lives to continue. So yeah, that's pretty good. But never at the same time. It's too intimate of a thing, because each person has their questions they want to have answered, and so it's better for when you're before the council to be there by yourself because it's your special time, and then your partner can go another time, and then you can let each other know, just or share with each other, about your sessions. And people done that. Like I'm getting ready to go down to Palm Springs area, which they just had that big flood last night, but in 2 weeks I'll be down there seeing a husband one day, and then they're having me spend the night with them there in their nice place down there. And then the second day I'll see the wife and have a session. And then the third day is a friend of theirs who's coming up from LA. So it's going to be a big old,
Shing, or you're
being in the
doing down there.
afterlife party. Yeah.
Well, what a gift. What a gift. And I'm so grateful that we can be doing this. And, Regan and I have done this show for, well, this would have been
Almost 3 years.
September would have been our third year anniversary.
Gosh.
And so with that I'm so grateful, though, that Regan, you are continuing wanting to work with us and doing the work that we've been doing, because I know that our mutual goal, our mutual intent was to be supportive and to guide people to have a more enlightened life. And it's been such a wonderful partnership that we've had in giving perspectives and that kind of thing. And so if anybody wants to watch, these shows will still be on Facebook. These shows will still be on my YouTube channel. They're not going to go away. They'll just be archived. I'm going to be putting all the platforms into one, I think, just to kind of clean up my YouTube channel and be able to negotiate that. So there's lots of old videos that are very, very timely in what we're going through now. We've just circled around some on some conversations and some we haven't. And, it's been perspective, but I know we've had some major wonderful shows, impactful shows. I remember some of the first ones we did that, we had a couple guests on that were very, very much in places in their life that it was very helpful to be with them. And so with that I'm hoping that we can still be helpful in our archiving together.
Yeah, you know what, I was just realizing more and more too, that one of the reasons I know for me that somehow Spirit had me do this work of helping people visit the afterlife. Every time I was sitting next to somebody and they're having this life-changing experience with, talking to relatives that have passed on, talking to the higher selves of people in their life, going before the council and getting so many questions answered. And I'm sitting there and I feel like I'm there too, with them. And it's just, it's like it's been a learning experience for me too, like a really, even just doing the show, if you look back 3 years ago and to now, I think I've grown a lot spiritually just from being with, Natasha here and for us talking to people and helping people just one at a time, I mean, I love that, the show has helped me prepare. Like I've been on so many podcasts. I've got 3 of them coming up this month, I think, where I'll be guest on there. So it's helped me to, and then I've given a couple of live speeches at these soul search symposiums where they have thousands of people come through on a weekend that are looking for some sorts of spiritual guidance. And they have I think the last one I was at, they must have had 10 mediums there,
Wow.
like a different flavor. There was, both men and women mediums, young mediums, middle-aged and old timer mediums there, and everybody had their specialty. And it was neat to walk around and you can just see certain people just felt guided to see a particular medium.
Isn't that interesting how people are guided? And that's one thing that I know that not everybody's been guided to us, but that's okay. We are just one in the mix, but follow your suit and how people work with you, because it is about, you being supported is our goal. And Paula says, I was thinking of having a person in my life. Okay, let me see here. I was thinking about thinking I have a person in my life that would share a previous life together and maybe wanted to find that information together.
Oh, yeah. Well, that could be done. It's best to see both persons because, that way you get the perspective of both people. Sometimes you just have one go and sometimes people wonder, well, I wonder if I was just influenced, did I just make that part up? But then if the other person confirms it, then that and for research, we'd like to see both sides because then you get confirmation that this is actually real, that way.
Exactly. So Paula also asks, how do you get trained to do in your work?
It's if you go to the Newton Institute site, they have for people that want to be trained into what I do, and then tell you what their qualifications and things are. Even if you haven't been a therapist with experience already, they have programs of, I'm trying to think what they call it. They're people they've lined up to help you get that training so you can have that and then to do your Newton Institute training. So that's what a lot of people have done, that way. That's what's interesting. Like Natasha's I just envy her sometimes because she just has this ability to do what the rest of us have to be trained and go through a lot of stuff to do. She can just, I mean, gosh, it would be so cool. But I have found out Natasha's actually helped me wake up to the little medium of me, what I call it, so that when I'm doing my sessions and all of a sudden I find guidance that just comes to me that I wonder, whoa, where the heck did that come from? And I know it's this spiritual connection or this media. It's like, somehow uh, Archangel Michael or one of the other guides there is downloading to me to ask the right questions with my client or to help them in a certain way, So I think I'm more accepting because Natasha had to wake me up, says, oh yeah, Regan, you have it but I just haven't been that aware of it, So it's good.
Not in the forefront.
Yeah. Now it's becoming more, I think I'm more comforted because I just know when I do a session and I put myself in the right place that just the right thing's going to happen, for my client, or I'll have the right insight or the right questions to ask, or, the right things to say to my client that'll help lead them to asking the right questions that they need to have while they're on the other side,
Well, one thing I've noticed about you, Regan, is that you've been able to put your ego to the side when you've
pretty
done your
much.
sessions. And that's one thing that a lot of spiritual people struggle with, is putting their ego
Yeah.
to the side. And so it's not that ego's bad. I don't want to ever say ego's bad, but I think that's a good segue getting into what we're talking about here,
Yeah.
because ego and forgiveness and living
Oh,
life and doing that is not always the easiest. And so let's segue
yeah.
into what we were meant to talk about, or what we were called to talk about
Yeah.
today, which was forgiveness and doing this dance. Because I know that, like the beginning of our show here, there was an action that caused us to have an interaction, and it was one of those things that could you forgive, and I'm not
Yeah.
going to name it because I don't want to harm the other person, but there again is that how do you determine how to forgive, when to forgive, and what is forgivable?
Yeah.
And because I have an understanding that there's many different perspectives on that, and I have things that have happened in my life that aren't forgivable. And how do I negotiate that unforgivable moment and apply it to being able to have a relationship with people?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know what you mean. When sometimes, uh, forgiving. Well, I know forgiveness. We've probably talked about forgiveness more on the show in the last 3 years than any other subject, but that's because it's such a huge thing in people's lives.
Mhm.
Um, you know, and what we found out, the one thing I found out sometimes, there's that poem. If for those of you who haven't read it, it's really a great poem. They don't even know the author, but it's millions and millions of people have read it. It's called A Season, a Reason, or a Lifetime. A Season, a Reason, or a Lifetime. Look it up on Google. And it's about why different people come and go in our lives, like ever since I mean, we seem to think that just because we're really close to some person or something, that they're going to be with us the rest of our life. But every once in a while, the universe uproots them, takes them away somewhere else. Sometimes it's time for you to leave in a relationship, but you stick around, and then all of a sudden, the universe, the person you're with or something, will abruptly be rude to you or something, just to rip it apart, just because you haven't been listening to the signs that it's time for you to move on. And it's very hurtful sometimes. And sometimes we hate people for that. But what it was is just the universe said, hey, you haven't been hearing the signs that I've been screaming at you, but your ears have been closed, but we need you over here. So rip, wow, you know.
And that's kind of what I felt like that we did with this Monday
Yeah.
show, is that there was interactions that were starting to say, "Wait a minute. Take a look at this. Is this starting to be, the joyfulness, or is this starting to be where it's getting to be like a little rock in the road that you keep having to drive over,
Right.
and it's getting bumpy." And no wrong or right, but those pre-tellers sometimes lead us to having something that happens, and it's being a kind of awake and interactive in our lives that can head off some of these things that we get into relationships that are a little bit more struggle,
Yeah.
and I'm grateful that we've kept our light between us, so
Yeah.
that we can negotiate the story. And I know, like last week, we were going to talk about, but you ended up having this wonderful acting thing, so you couldn't have
Oh,
been
yeah.
on Monday show, and we were going to talk about how to have conversations during change. And I talked a little bit about how we had our conversation when this change kind of came up, and that's the thing about life is that when we interact, that there's sometimes where we do things, we have conversations, and what is our intention around that? And that can even lead to a unforgivable moment or a forgivable moment because we've said something wrong. And so sometimes when we have to check about what's going on in our life in this moment, because that's when things happen. There's things in our past. Yeah, we can't change those. But how do we negotiate the world we're in now
Yeah.
to make it to where we don't have to worry about those forgivable moments or non-forgivable moments? And we're all here. And oh, I wanted to say hello to Veronica because she said hi
Hey.
guys earlier. And
Hey, Veronica.
I'm sending you love today, sweetie. It's just, what do we do with life and this dance is, I know that, there are times when in the moment that things aren't forgivable. We're right raw. I mean, it's like taking a Band-Aid off that was really sticky. It's raw. It hurts. That interaction hurt. Don't try to forgive right away sometimes. We gotta go through the emotion of it. And that hurt sometimes is something that we gotta feel and negotiate with. And then we can start going into, a weeks later, months later, years later, that we can start going into some form of forgiveness. But there's sometimes where things just aren't forgivable after time. But how do we negotiate that? What is the conversation we can do? Regan, do you have any ideas?
Well, I think I hear what you're saying about being unforgivable that way, but somehow I think in the greater sense of when you look at the whole picture, um, I mean, I just know some people have done. I'm trying to think who it was I saw recently on TV. It was a woman who was forgiving the man who had killed her son. And actually, she actually went to prison, started visiting him, and they started building a relationship where even though at first she hated him, she had to go through, just like you're saying, to experience everything. And the most horrific thing of him murdering her son. But then it came to a point in her life where, she had to, and she was Christian, knew that that was her duty, was to try to find a way to forgive this man. And she eventually did. And it ended up being the most beautiful story of forgiveness. And there's a movie I saw. It was about this man who had been tortured in World War II by this uh, Japanese commander in this camp that he was in because he was a prisoner in World War II, and he was tortured horribly and treated horribly by this Japanese man. And now later on in his life, like 30, 40 years later, he searches out that man to find him and forgive him. And it was this movie that they did with Colin Montgomery Colin Montgomery something in this actor. He's a famous actor. Someone probably knows the movie out there. But what a heartfelt movie when they were able to you know forgive somebody, which seemed to be unforgivable at the time, but after 30, 40 years both of them had grown. And um, and he actually began to have compassion for this Japanese commander because he knew this Japanese commander was he was controlled by the people higher up and everything, and was doing all these horrible things. Even people from the Holocaust, some of them have got to forgive their captors and feel how horrible it must have been for some of the, like I saw one of the movies one time, a movie one time about the Holocaust, and somebody had to, lift the thing on top of the chambers and dump the cyanide down in there and then close the lid. These were just people that were forced to do that, and how they had to live with killing thousands of people, that they
Mhm.
had to do. So it's just man, it's just how do we get to forgive the unforgivable, you know, sometimes, but that
I
it's
think
hard.
yeah, I think that it is, there's that the thing though that I am witnessing is separating the people from the situation.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done is that there's certain things that have happened in my life that action is unforgivable. I will never allow that action to happen to me
The
again.
action. Yes, of course.
That person or that conversation, the action of the conversation to happen again. That
Yeah.
is unforgivable. Now, knowing that the people that have done that action are still in my life and they are very much important in my life, that I am weaving my way through that. It's almost like a skip in the record in a way
Hmm.
that I'm just choosing to let that thing pause for a minute. I'm not interacting with it. I know that in that person's relationship with me that we're not going back there again. But the thing is, though, if we do go back there again, I will look at that moment that's unforgivable and say, that's what I'm not going to allow anymore. That's my boundary.
Yeah.
I'm, and so with that a lot of times I've found that if I can take the person off the situation and have the action is not forgivable, then
Yeah.
that way I can maneuver the way of saying, okay, I know that that person's changed from that action. Now, that doesn't mean that that person, if they start being that person again, because sometimes we can revert back.
Hmm.
We can have a moment where we revert back to our 30 years ago or 20 years ago or something like that. We're all human, right? But
Hmm.
there's then that thing though that says it was almost like a stopping point in my life that said, uh-uh, this is a boundary. Don't ever go there. You
Yeah,
know?
because I think people confuse sometimes forgiving somebody. They think that if they forgive them, that they're justifying that the bad behavior that those people had towards us was okay.
Hmm.
And it says no, we're not justifying the act, that way, because it's never right to abuse somebody or to hurt somebody or murder somebody or the awful things that human beings do, but to forgive the person and not their action. I think if you separate the two, it might be a little easier to forgive.
Yeah, because there's some people, I'm not saying that murder is okay. I'm
No.
definitely not. That is an unforgivable moment. But looking at what some people grow up in, and
Yeah.
then there's moments where if that person, let's say, was in a very abusive situation and they just blew, and then that person and they were drinking because they were that way. It doesn't mean excuses. I'm not trying to say that anything is right, but sometimes when somebody gets sober and they're like going, and they're getting out of what they were doing, it was like, holy crap, what did I did that.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of have some I want to call it empathy or sympathy or whatever that language is, whatever that name for that language is, for how somebody comes into an understanding that, oh, so there again is that if this person is changing and being more enlightened and they're becoming different than the thing that's unforgivable, they themselves are separating themselves from that thing that is unforgivable.
Yeah.
Then I can start looking at saying, okay, I can start trusting the person and start saying, okay, I can start being kind to that person. I can start thinking that they had a life. I can start being more empathetic with that person, knowing that oh, they did have a hell of a life growing up, right?
Yeah.
And so they kind of came, they didn't know what they were really truly doing. And that's the thing is that when somebody can take responsibility for their action, then it's easier to kind of work with the person or the personality of the situation.
Yeah.
But I'm getting that, and there's sometimes where we have situations where we can't allow that person to come into our life. You
Yeah.
know, it depends on it depends on what the action was that is unforgivable. Sometimes we have to cut the cords because being around that person is too icky. But at some point in your life or in someone's life, I really hope that they can get to the point where it's saying, I'll be okay in spite of it. I
Yeah.
will love someone else in spite of what happened to me. I will be kind to others who have that same smell, tone, and voice and way of walking, because I know I'm going to love in spite of it. I'm going to be
Yeah.
okay in spite of it.
Well, people that are um, in these 12-step programs that go into them for drugs and alcohol, and boy, I've been there with my clients and a lot of times to a lot of the meetings, and just to hear some of the stories and these men and women confessing all of the horrible things they did when they had the addiction, of the relationships they ruined and the thievery that they did just to get their drugs and the way they abused themselves and everything. Um, and I'm thinking of the other side of the coin that sometimes we have to ask for forgiveness from people. We have to apologize and hope that they'll give it to us. I think the sad thing is sometimes when a person finally gets to that point and from their heart they really are sorry, they're truly sorry for what they did, and they go to the person who they want to be forgiven by, and that person refuses. That, oof, then you have this other scenario in there. Now who needs to learn something? Once the person that had the addiction, comes clean and really in their, because you know, I don't think there's anything that's more moving than somebody coming to you and has a heartfelt apology. You can tell that they're not just lip service, but they are truly sorry for what they did. You
Mhm.
know,
And
um,
their actions say that they're sorry. It's
yes,
not
right,
just words, it's
right,
their actions that say that they're sorry too. That
yeah,
because I know for me that there's been a couple relationships that I've had that, the people's actions have shown
yeah,
me that, you know, I can trust the person. Now, there again, those actions I'm not going to go back to, but
hmm,
this person is showing me. Alexis, how you doing? Welcome for watching. Hi there. The action doesn't have to be accepted. Who is really to blame for any wrongdoing? That's a good question. I think
hmm.
that we are all party, a product
Product of
of
circumstance.
sense. And we have to forgive, otherwise we can't accept to be forgiven. And there is a
Good
grace
point.
thank you. That is a grace that I call uh are they deserving of my forgiveness? That's the thing, Paula says. That's the thing that we got to look at, because you know everybody in our lives is a mirror of a little corner of who we are.
Yeah,
I can see myself a little bit in Regan,
yeah,
and Regan can see a little bit of me in him. We've
yeah,
talked about it.
hmm,
And that's why I can say that statement, that people mirror us for a certain reason. And so looking at things and honoring who we are, and knowing that we're perfectly imperfect too. So there again is giving grace for some of these things. And I'm going to say that, we've talked about some pretty heavy things like murder, and what I'm thinking of is somebody who was doing something when they were drunk, and so there's those actions. But there is a level of things that some of us might think that if somebody stole, let's say, okay, so I remember like when my kid went into my room and went through my stuff, and that was something that was against our rule of the house, was you don't go into other people's stuff. Even when they were kids, I'd still would ask permission, even me being mom, that, hey, I pay the house bills, I do the things, so I'm allowed to go in your room, but there's certain things that their private place, and I would be respectful of that, right? But at the same time, though, when they went into my stuff, I had to really think about, is this something that's forgivable? Well, yeah, because in perspective, they were young, still learning how to do things. And so there's that mirror, though, that how was I dishonorable in my life? How was I being a little bit, looking into people's stuff when I shouldn't have? So looking at ourselves and saying, yeah, I'm not quite perfect either. So judgment, be careful of judgment when you're working with people and other people's situations and negotiating. Because like I mentioned about Regan putting his ego away when he does his sessions, we have to have some bigger picture understanding that life is life and we're all perfectly imperfect while we're doing it. And sometimes we are just, oh my gosh, some of us are just in a life that we're getting, I have a mutual friend that, he just lost his dad. He just lost his dad's sister. And then the fires are hitting and he had to evacuate.
Yeah.
He's probably not his best right now. So what am I going to try to forgive or unforgive about his life, right? And thank you, Jay, for letting me say that. It's just one of those things that, what do we do with things that are happening in our life? And sometimes we're in places where, oh my gosh, I'd start off with saying, hey guys, I'm tired. Please forgive me if I say something that's a little off. I'm not trying to, I'm just very tired, and so I'll try to stay quiet as much as I can because I don't want to say something wrong here. I try to give a pretense, so that kind of helps a little bit, that kind of stuff. So, so Sue says, hi, Sue, how you doing? Thank you for being here. My healing doesn't require anyone else's forgiveness. Sometimes those who wrong us will never change.
Yeah.
True statement. True statement. And Paula says, and if that unforgivable choice they made remains my life, how imperfect that is impacting me. Yes, so let me reread that because I kind of scrolled that up. And if that unforgivable choice they made remains in my life, how is that impacting me? Yeah, and that's the thing that that when we're going through life, that there's certain things that keep coming around for us. It keeps coming around. There's certain actions that happen. It's like that thing, like if we have a child that is on that's doing drugs and they keep stealing from us, and then we go to that let's say our jewelry box, and the favorite thing that your mother was stolen, and you keep looking at it and it keeps not being there, and how do you get, that's the thing that I'm saying, that sometimes there's that moment that's unforgivable and it hurts and it's painful. But how do you do that if that child ends up showing them that they're remorseful and they get healthy and they get clean? But if they don't, that's where boundaries are. That's where, I'm sorry, kid, can't come in the house. You've proven to be unsafe. You've been coming, no, you're still doing. No, you're not here. And if you are, I'm walking you to the bathroom and you're peeing with the door open.
Yeah.
know?
Oh boy. Yeah. It's tough sometimes. Well, just like the person that Natasha and I both know, whose husband, his drinking got so bad, he got physical with her one time. And with the child there and everything, she just says, I love this man, but I can't be with him anymore. And she did the big step of moving away and everything. And then he goes and kills himself. So it's like just that. I mean, you and I know she did the right thing. It's not on her because of his actions there. And so now, uh, having that person, because when somebody kills themselves, one of the things that people that are left do, they go through, it's like the same thing you go through when a person dies normally, is there's that anger that comes in for a while, where you're so angry at what they did, and eventually, you have to have to forgive yourself, if you think, because sometimes these people think, oh gosh, if I hadn't left the person, he'd still be alive and whatever. you know that other person was his decision, not on you, to do the right to that. I know I've had people before, they were wanting to get a divorce, and the other person says, if you leave, I'm going to kill myself, you know and that's what they use to kind of hold on to the people for a while, and
Mhm.
eventually the women, because in my regular practice I deal with a lot of women that have those kind of issues, where they've been violated so many times and they're trying to get over it. So much is involved in forgiving the abuser, the people, some relationships are that way, where the husband's controlling and abusing, and the women stay there for years and years and years, and they finally get out of it. And eventually, a lot of them, as they get older, they'll forgive that person, but it's hard to forgive sometimes. you know I don't know which is harder, having people have to forgive us for what we've done, or go through that, or to forgive people for things that they've done to us. you know um,
I know it's a tricky place, and it's the thing though that I feel like that this is where I use the mantra, "I'm asking for healing on this."
okay.
That there's sometimes where, or I use the word, I am asking for divine healing on this, because of the fact that there's sometimes where something is so big, it's so heavy, that sometimes it's bigger than my emotions, my mindset, my
Yeah.
understanding at the moment, and I have to get it out of me and surrender it. Surrender it somehow. Um, and it doesn't mean that it makes it all right. It doesn't mean that it's right or wrong. It's just that right now my emotions are so heavy with the situation that I need to just give it to somebody else who can do better with it. And I have a belief system in something greater than me, and so I give it over to that something greater than me. And that to me is how I've negotiated sometimes when I'm in life and life is going and things are happening to me, and they're like way kind of like, what? What? And I have to give it over because how do I negotiate something? Sometimes we can't. We have to give it
Yeah.
time. We have to give it its breath, and breath is one of those things that gives things, because I surrender, trust, and accept because I don't have all the information yet.
Yeah.
I have to know that this is not the moment that everything's going to stay.
Yeah. Well, Natasha, you and I, one thing we're able to do with people is to give them get them more information about their situation. And sometimes that helps them to forgive. I think I told a couple of times on the show, but it's just such a good example of this, is the client that came to me, that she was a nurse, and there was 3 doctors in rotation during the week that would come. And one of the 3 doctors was so emotionally abusive to this nurse who came to me, that she would have panic attacks before going into work, because she would know for no reason, nothing she did to this guy at all, but he was just horribly verbally abusive to her in secret. There was never, they never did it in front of everybody else, where she could turn him into, human resources or something to get rid of him. He would pull her aside and tell her how horrible she was, and she just felt horrible. So she was like this before she had to see the guy, and had to just get through the day. Well, when I helped her to go to the other side, she's before counsel over there in the afterlife, and she asked of them, why is this doctor so horribly cruel to me? And they just said one sentence to her, and then they moved on. They said, you were very cruel to him in another lifetime. you know she did not want to hear that, but hearing that and having her think about that for a while and meditate and pray on that, all of a sudden she's going to work, he's not mean to her anymore. you know and somehow now she's still trying to forgive him, but she's kind of, I think she's 3/4 of the way there forgiving him, because she's realizing that in this instance, it was just, you know, balancing the scales, because she was mean to him. Now she had to come back and go through what she had him to go through. So that's one aspect, but and that helped me. Someone who was in my lifetime an employee that I had that stole from me and cost me $100,000. You know, was taken out of raising 5 kids, and here an employee steals $100,000. You know, and ran away somewhere. And I through meditation, contemplation over a period of a few years, I realized that I was getting payback from being a flim flam man in another lifetime and screwing her out of a bunch of money. So what was funny was, inadvertent, just out of the blue, she moved away to Florida. I was in Sacramento. I went to a convention in Los Angeles. I'm at a roundabout table or breakout session. I sit down. Of all the people in the world, she's sitting right across from me. You know, wow. And I was surprised to see that. I went over and hugged her, and I said it was so nice to see her. It was something in me that over the years I had completely forgiven this person, put it in perspective, that it was just a payback and everything was okay, you know. And then weird things, they go beyond this. You'll never believe it, but she's works with the Newton Institute doing exactly what I'm doing now. And she was just my secretary, no a very spiritual person or something, and here we find out that we're both working doing the same thing now. So it was we had to be part of a soul group kind of thing, where we were, you know,
Yeah,
something. Isn't that something? So
it is. But there again is it though, you know, that I bet you because of that interaction, you've watched your pennies a little bit differently.
oh yeah,
You've
yeah,
woken up to that there's a
I
bigger picture, that you don't just trust freely like
yeah,
you did before. And
exactly,
so there again, then that action is not necessarily forgivable, because you took it as I'm going to do better in spite of it. It got
yeah.
me on the path that I needed to do, right?
I stopped being so gullible, you know, such an that way. So yeah, there's lessons all around. So all I'm saying is that sometimes when we're going through difficult things and things happen to us, one of the reasons, not all the time, but sometimes, it's just payback. It's just karma, you know, that we had to go through. So if you're a spiritual person, that's one of the things. When someone's horrible to you or something like that, put that in the equation, you know, because that might help, you know, sometimes as being the reason why, you know.
Mhm.
Um,
Exactly, exactly. Just checking on some of the comments. Thank you guys for commenting. This is so
yeah,
wonderful.
this is great when you
Um,
guys comment.
uh, you know, so then I don't know. My healing doesn't require anyone else's forgiveness. Sometimes those who wronged us will never change, and that's what
Right.
I'm just making sure.
Yeah.
Having the bigger picture has things have helped me so much for sure. Yes.
Yeah.
And that is, I think, the bigger picture. And that's where, you know, like this other person that's been in my life now, you know, I won't go back, but I can sure tell I'm enjoying the future with our friendships and
Yeah.
the way we're going. And Hans, sorry, you've been saying some things here. Fastable.
Fast to label. I'm
Yeah,
not
so
sure what
sorry
that
about
means.
that. So
Does he know what the English translation of that would be? Or what's
yes,
that?
I'll check and see. So I'm totally good with forgiving myself for any part I've played in his choices. But if I feel his actions are unforgivable and he doesn't own it, it's okay not to forgive him.
Well, that's interesting. I don't know. Maybe still forgive him, but just not that, to say the actions are not acceptable. In other words, that would be like this person we were talking about, that even though she loved this person, he was not willing to go to rehab, you know, to quit his drinking and everything. So that those things, you know, and him getting abusive to her, that's not acceptable, you know. But
Mhm.
you know, as far as forgiving the person when you realize that they're an alcoholic, you know, like people that are drug addicted, there becomes a point where the drug takes them over, you
Mhm.
know, that they become somebody other than themselves. And why it
Yep.
is kind of themselves, it isn't kind of themselves, if you know what I mean, you know.
Exactly. And that's the thing is that that's where boundaries we gotta
Yeah.
we gotta set boundaries. We gotta say, this is not acceptable in my life. We have to have that tough love. And
Yeah.
I'm even gonna say mean love sometimes because they don't hear us. We have to have those moments where, but it is making sure that our life is okay because of it.
Yeah.
That we can tell ourselves, like this person, mutual person we know, and struggling with the process of somebody not being here anymore because of because of actions that we've done. But at the same time, though, those actions were something to keep us safe. So there's really no wrong. Like, I had somebody who told me, that a lot of us a lot of us, you know, try to make sure that, like, for me, I'm just going to name it. For me, I'm a kind person. So sometimes I walk in and I say, I can see that that part of me is let's say if somebody's doing an action, like, let's say being late for something,
Hmm.
and it was hurtful for me that they were late. Right. Well, I can say, well, yeah, I can say that I can be late too sometimes. So I'm going to be empathetic and sympathetic about it. But sometimes, though, when somebody really knows that they were going to be late and they didn't communicate, and there's la da 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 happen, what do you do about it? What do you do with it? And that's a tricky place. That's a really tricky place. So, Paula, um, that's where I got to give it over. Paula, that's those times where I give it over to something greater than me,
Yeah.
because I don't have all the information. I trust, surrender, accept, because I don't have all the information yet. And I don't know what the future is going to be with my knowings and my understandings. And so that there again is
Yeah.
a tricky place.
Well, it's like if you're living with someone who's been unfaithful, like I know one of my clients, her husband was like a serial cheater, you know, and finally got to the point where she said, you know what? I love you so much. You're such a beautiful person in most ways, but I choose not to live with a person that doesn't respect me enough to not cheat on me. So, I just have to let you go. And he was begging and whatever, but she just knew he's just going to be that way, and you have
Hmm.
to set your boundaries, and you can just love him, try to forgive him, but not accept that behavior and move on. you
Yeah.
know
And there
you
is
just
a
have to move
difference
on.
between, yeah, there is a difference between not accepting behavior and saying that it's not right, but saying, I can understand you're human. I
Right.
understand that you're addictive. I understand that you have a situation. I'm not allowing it. You're not in my life,
Yeah.
but I understand you're human. I understand you have a story. I understand that things are happening to you. You're not in my life.
Well, and it's funny, talking about this in relationships, because some relationships, when one of the persons cheats and really hurts the person really bad, but the person comes and is super remorseful and they're sincere, a lot of those marriages actually uh, go on and actually become stronger than they even were before, just because they had to work through this particular thing of forgiveness, and the husband realizing what he'd done was wrong, and him having to grow and everything through it. So it doesn't excuse his behavior that he did there, but through that, through that growth and that they both had, sometimes they've come out stronger.
Mhm.
So it's life is difficult. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this show. It's like,
Exactly, exactly.
gosh, it's not
And
like we're sitting here all talking about Disneyland or something. Oh, life is so, life
yeah,
is
no, no,
difficult.
no, no. And that's the thing is that I hope that people understand that on the shows that we do, Regan and I on Life, on Dance of the Soul, and then me on Life Clarification in the past, turning Life Clarifications turning into Every Day with an Angel, that it is about talking about sometimes life is, it's got a little bit of hell in it, for lack
Yeah.
of a better word.
Uh-huh.
A little bit of oh my gosh, why? Or this is not the way I thought my life was going to be. you know?
Yeah.
But how do you get through it? How do you manage through it? And Regan and I both understand there's no, there's moments where there's like, a rainbow in the clouds, and there is moments where we have joy, and there is moments. But being human and on this planet, it's about stretching, pulling of our emotions. And and struggling with forgiveness, or how to forgive, or how to look at things in a higher perspective, different perspective, getting a bigger vision, is part of how we do negotiate this life to a better place in our
Yeah.
mind. Like I've told people lately, I've told somebody lately that, my perception about giving this over to my higher power is actually helping me survive.
Yeah.
It's actually helping me survive. And if that's what works, all for the better, right? And
Yeah.
Hans, I appreciate your comments, but I'm sorry that the language you're speaking in, and I'm very dyslexic, and English is even a struggle for me. So I honor you for where you're at, and I just want to hear what you're having to say. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Sorry
It's
about
just
that.
is spamming the feed. Oh, okay. Thank you, Sue, very much for telling me that. Appreciate that. So I will yes, thank you. So Alexis says here, however, I think we need to think about why someone commits a crime and look into why they did it. What happened to their current past lives that led them this way? And yes, that is
Yeah.
part of getting the bigger picture. And she says more, uh, I think if someone shows you no respect, they probably not learn truly to respect themselves.
Exactly.
Yes. Um, uh, and and that kind of stuff. So thank you, Sue, for that, and I will block him. So oops, don't want to do that. So when we are ban user delete, okay. So when we're going through things and managing our life, that is a perspective, but remembering this is a tricky place, that we are right now in the human moment negotiating what we do. So there is reasons and there is situations, kind of like how, Regan, with this person who stole money from you, that you in the past life did something to her. So this is this. But the only way we can stop contracts is by saying, stop now.
That's
I
right.
don't want to
Like
do a
it
tit for
stops.
tat every lifetime.
Right. Stops here. Yeah.
It stops here. And that's where adding on this moment of having boundaries. I see that you are drugged. I see that you've had a rough life. I see that you're doing this, but personally, I'm done with the story. I'm done with the story that's
Yeah.
happening between us, and I do not want to continue this contract anymore. And healing that moment does enable those contracts not to be tit for tat for another 100,000 years, right?
Yeah.
So,
And I wanted to mention too, this book that's great. If you're having trouble with forgiveness, it's called Forgive for Good. And it's by some people from Stanford University who did studies on what happens to our bodies physically, and that when we have anger pent up, or when we haven't forgiven people. And they really showed through all their studies, just the people that have trouble forgiving more have more illnesses in their life and more sickness and everything. It's just like it's it's sometimes our anger that we have towards people is like giving ourselves a poison pill and thinking someone else is going to die.
mhm,
And
exactly.
when I have people on the other side, and through the life between life process, we always deal with their health issues. And when they have their health issues down, then usually the council over there or something will allow a healer over there to look at their, to kind of do a body scan, see how they're doing. And they'll also tell them why they have their illnesses. And it's very frequently what comes up is they'll say, you have this illness because of the anger that you still hold for this particular person, or you're not willing to forgive this particular person, and you've made yourself sick. And they'll tell them that, say that you can reverse your health issues, and that if you
Mhm.
forgive, if you work on forgiveness and everything, that eventually your health issues will cure or will heal up. So that's just more confirmation that even if it's just for yourself, forgive people, because you carry that anger and that stuff in there, and it's just polluting your water and your body. It's polluting everything, making you sick, making you, you know, that way. So, that's I say number one reason, forgive for so you can be healthy. Just learn to forgive. And sometimes I just say, fake it till you make it. You
Mhm.
know, I mean, you wouldn't you, like, Natasha, like, you're so good with mantras and everything, or, like, I'm, I'm, I, I'm in the process of forgiving, even if you say, I'm in the process of forgiving so-and-so for this horrible thing they did for me. I wish them well. And I don't know, what would be a good mantra, or a good thing to say to get people started in the right track?
Well, it's giving over the control is part of the process. That's what I found. So that's where I use the mantras, like I surrender, trust, and accept, because I don't have all the information yet. I'm asking
Hmm.
for divine healing on this. I'm having boundaries with kindness and love.
Hmm.
And I'm really okay, so this person's doing this to me again. What is this here to teach me? And no more. What is this here to teach me? And no more.
I like that one.
Doing things that saying something in the mix of it can really help negotiate this story. It's kind of like how like when Sue told me that he's saying pickup lines and that kind of stuff, because she went into translator for me. Thank you, Sue. I didn't necessarily get angry about it, but I had boundaries.
Yeah.
Once I found out information, I found out truth. I okay, gonna take care of it. But I didn't hold resentment. I didn't go into ego about it. I just said, nope, nope, nope. But
Bye
there
bye.
again, there's sometimes where things are bigger than me, and I have to give it over to something bigger than me. And that's where Alexis, yes, suffering is never fair. That's the point. God does give us more than we can take, but to suffer, we learn to empathy for others. Yes.
Yeah.
Uh, French school paid off, Sue says. I
What'd she
love
say?
that. French school paid off. LOL.
Oh, yeah.
I love it. So yes, so Alexis, yes, suffering doesn't happen. But that's the thing is that, to take God out of a personality and into spirit. I take God out of personality. It- you know, I do call him more him because of he's feeling more masculine to me in energy than feminine, right? But that's my story with him. But he is, to me, spirit. So he weaves his way. So how can God weave his energy into me to help me see the bigger picture, give me ways to negotiate it, but not always be the victim? And I need to stay out of victimhood when things happen. And that's where, what is this here to teach me? And you know, uh I surrender, trust, and accept. We got to stay out of victimhood. you know, we got to get into this empowerment. Why am I here? Why am I negotiating this? What am I going to do with it? And where's it going to take me? You
Yeah.
know, but stay out of the whys. Why is this? Why am I feeling this way about it? Why? No, we got to get into what, the hows, the I'm going to negotiate this, get into the empowerment of it, because many a times when people are doing things to us, it throws us into victimhood, and victimhood keeps us small.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Victim keeps it small. So, what I would say today, because, in closing here, is, forgiving somebody isn't something that happens overnight. You know, just like grieving. Grieving, people think, why can't I just get over grief in a hurry? It's just, there's a process to all these things. So don't feel bad or beat yourself up too much if you haven't been able to totally forgive someone. Just start with little baby steps. By repeating maybe some of the things that Natasha said. You know, by maybe going into meditation and just asking your guide net to help you to change your heart to forgive this person, and just continue down that road. It might take a long time sometimes, but as long as you're moving forward and trying to forgive somebody, you're going in the right direction. you know and
Because there is, I like the word, the word trying to forgive someone. At least you're putting thought into how can this be a bigger picture?
Yeah.
And like I said, sometimes we have to take and I've had a couple shows on this where something was happening in my life, and I really had to take the person off the situation. I had to put the person off the situation and put it to the action that was happening. So then
Yes.
I took the personality out of it. I took the you did this to me scenario. The action did this to me. And then once I dealt with the action and knew how to negotiate the action, then I was able to put the person back in to know how to deal with the person, because I separated them out. A lot of times we get into situations that it's all in one bag. It's all in one story. And sometimes the action is unforgivable, but the person who's doing it has this other scenario going on with them, and it's hard to separate them out. So that's where a lot of times I really try to take, the action. The action was this person, this thing was said to me that hurt.
Yeah.
I will not forgive those words ever again. Now the person might have been, in a big spiral depression at the moment, and now coming out of it, and now it has not gone back to that depression moment in years, right?
Yeah.
But that action was unforgivable. Now that person moved on. So how do we negotiate that? Then that's what I've tried to do too, is that I've really tried to take the person off the action and look at what the action means to me.
That's really good. And, and that's good parenting. You start out that way with your children as they misbehave when they're younger. And you don't berate them so much as that you berate the action that they did, that it was not right to hit your sister, I mean, that action is, of hitting sisters is not good, but you still let them know that you love them, and regardless of that, but you let them know that that behavior is not acceptable, that
Mhm.
way.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
it's not about a lot of times it's not about the person, because the person's just learning. Like kids,
Yeah.
they're just learning. And sometimes we have 60-year-olds that are still learning.
Yeah.
We have 80-year-olds that are still learning.
We're all still learning. Yeah.
We're all still learning. So how do we do that? So Alexis, and we're gonna have to come down to the end of the show here soon. I think that's more important initially than to forgive, is to help yourself heal. Without that, it's very difficult to forgive. Very well said. And I think
Yeah.
that's a perfect note to end the show on, because Alexis, that is very wise. Thank you. We're all in the midst of being human on this planet. And what are we going to do about it?
Yeah. I
Um,
know. It was nice having everybody interact today. That's what makes it
yes.
really, really good, because it's like we're all sitting in the living room together, just having a discussion about something important, rather than the
Mhm.
weather, which has been crazy, here in
Yeah,
California.
you're down in
Yeah.
California.
And a hurricane coming up. Yeah. So, yeah. And so, yeah, tune in next week. It'll be our last week for Dance of the Soul, and then the format's changing, as we mentioned to begin with. So I'll be on every third Wednesday with Natasha, and Natasha's going to have some great guests on, be talking about things, and have one bigger show, because she's getting, I know Natasha's been a guest on some different podcasts, and she's been getting a lot of people that are calling her for her, her wisdom and that. And so she's able to help people. And I've
Yes.
been getting busy too. So we're, on helping people visit the afterlife. So it's onward and upward, but it's so nice to have people here. So not ending, just morphing into a different format. It's a little more professional, a little more upbeat, and it'll be on Wednesdays at 4, right now, Natasha?
Wednesdays at 4 on my YouTube channel and Facebook and Twitter. And if you're on Twitter, I do not get your comments. So please go to my YouTube channel, Natasha Venter AC, and that's Natasha and then Venter Venter AC. And this is the thing, is that whatever I do in my life, I like to do it with intention. And I know Regan does the same thing. And And it's one of those things that as we're going in life, that when we get too busy, we lose our intention and our integrity about doing things. And Regan and I both want to stay in high integrity with what we do with our practice, with the people we interact with, and even how we run our shows. And we were both noticing that we were starting to get a little bit busy and we were not holding up to the intention that we wanted to have. And we want to honor you who's watching our shows and doing the righter thing. And that is to morph it into one Wednesday show. And Regan, I'm so grateful that you want to stay in my life.
Yeah.
That you're not just leaving me. I love
Yeah.
you so much. I don't want you to leave me. But that's me being stingy. So with that, how can people get a hold of you, Regan?
Through right on the screen there, visit theafterlife.com. Great videos on there that show this process where people in a deep state of trance, which most people can reach, about 90% of them can get to go to the afterlife for a few hours. So it's like having a near-death experience without the death part, or like an out-of-body kind of thing. So you actually get to meet your guide, angel, get to before a council, get questions answered that you prepare, see loved ones that have passed on. There's places of higher learning there where you can visit. You get inspiration for the arts. You can even visit a place where people on the other side do recreation, which is a real, people sometimes just laugh their heads off and you just see how much fun souls have over there. So, and maybe there's a place where they give harp lessons over there. I don't know. I haven't had anybody go to that place yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, but I also do regular therapy for people. So through Zoom, I do sessions all over, things having to do with post-traumatic stress, fears, phobias, things that, depression. Oh my gosh, just anything that is energy intensive, when you're having trouble dealing with things. And we have some great modalities to help you with there. And now, Natasha, I know you've redone your website now. Is it still going to be called Angelic Clarifications?
It is.
So,
It is.
so that's where people can get a hold of if they want to have a session from you as a medium,
It
or
is.
feng shui even. I know.
I do.
Like now I'm looking at, like I've done this, I give her a plug all I want because I just love my office. I'm looking at the angel lights that I have all around my ceiling here now. It adds such a great softness to here, especially when I'm doing therapy with people. It's just, it doesn't make it seem so business-like here. It seems more spiritual, so.
Well, and two, you have beams that go across your
Yeah.
across your ceiling, and when you put the lights around, it kind of softened up the beams, so the beams weren't so. It brought the lights more out.
Yeah.
The power of the beams weren't so heavy, but and that's a better feng shui when you're sitting with beams across you. So,
Yeah.
and Paula says, what a loving living room. I've been working in the yard and moving stuff. So she's been listening to us as she's moving stuff. That's one thing I love about this show is that that's why it's called a podcast, because you don't always have to watch us. And this podcast will be on this show is on podcasts. And you can look for Every Day with an Angel podcast now, it's called. I changed it from Life with an Angel. So now that podcast is even changed over. So there's only going to be one post now that will be on Wednesdays, unless I can figure out how to load up my 2-minute videos to just sound. But I haven't quite figured that out yet. So it's one of those things. So peace and I love that, Paula. Thank you. Peace, love, and light to everyone. And I agree. So yes, Life Angelic Clarifications is where I'm at, and you can reach me there. I am so grateful to be able to give assistance with people in their life's journey. It's about bringing light and love to this world, and why are we here? And I'm willing to get in the trenches and look with you to lift you up out of them. And that's one thing that this show, Every Day with an Angel's intention is going to be, is about bringing the spirit world and its consciousness down to earthly realm, and how are they wanting to lift us up. And you talk about the council, and there's a councilman. I'm part of the council. The council is what governs the universe. And this council has sub-councils in it, but the council of 8 that I interact with, that they're starting to want me to talk about this governing council. And they're wanting me to talk about what is going on in the universe. And so that's part of Every Day with an Angel is going to be about, is how is the universe working with us, trying to help us do better. So it's going to be an interesting show. I'm going to be doing a lot deeper work. It's my time to come out.
Yeah.
And to be. And I'm
Time to
stepping
shine.
into it. It's time to
good.
shine. And I know a lot of the things I've been talking about before, but there's going to be a little bit more deeper intent, because I'll be able to do the one show, bring it in, do what I'm called to do, and honor you guys. 'Cause I want to help you guys do better in your life and feel better about yourself. So blessings, everyone. See you on Wednesday at 4:00 Pacific time. And you know what? It's coming to me I'm gonna be talking about, but I'm not too sure quite yet. So I will know.
I say you'll post it.
I will post it on Wednesday at 4:00 Pacific time. Blessings all.
Okay.
Bye now.
See you later. Bye.